Well, howdy. Let me know how the audio is working. How's it going? Let's get this forge lit. Let's get the forge rolling here. Where did I put my torch? I'm telling you guys, the organization level around here is top of the line. Oh my goodness. Very nice. How's everybody doing? Rick, how's it going? Ricky? Guys from Poland, California. Thanks for being here. Today today the goal is to forge one Tomahawk. And for that project we have our little billet. This is a inch and a quarter long section of 2-inch round 1045 carbon steel. And that is what we are looking to make, to forge this Tomahawk out. So obviously first we're going to have to reshape the billet. Some stock comes in some shapes and sizes. This 1045 I have in round stock, which I think is fairly common for this kind of material. Hatchets and axes and things like that, but I've never actually forged a Tomahawk like this. The fundamental difference between a Tomahawk and an axe of any size, whether it's a hand axe or a full-size axe, is the method of construction, and specifically the way the handle fits into the eye. Because on a Tomahawk, here's the Tomahawk handle pre-made. Hickory, yeah, this one's actually warped, so I'm not going to be using this one. I have some others. But it's narrower in the handle, and it very gradually tapers wider, and then it more quickly tapers up here. And so the head of the Tomahawk is installed up here. eye of the tomahawk. Whereas with an axe of any sort, size or shape, the axe eye tapers in both directions. So you can fit the axe from the top and then add a wedge so that it's wider on both ends of the axe eye, and it's kept tight by the wedge. It forces the sides of the handle or the haft into that shape of the axe eye. And so that's the fundamental difference between a tomahawk and an axe or a hatchet. So really, fundamentally more simple in theory and design for the tomahawk. See how it is to build one. You're right, my wireless is not on. That is preposterous. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. Is that better? Yeah, my whole receiver unit was not on for the mic here. You guys probably didn't hear anything I was just saying, explaining about what I was just saying. So I'm going to go over that again. And I think you guys weren't able to hear any of that probably with the background noise. Yeah, sorry about that. So what I was saying is the fundamental difference between an axe of any size, whether it's a hand axe, a hatchet, or a full-size axe, difference between that and a tomahawk fundamentally is how the eye is constructed. So on a tomahawk, you can see here we've got a tomahawk handle, and it's narrower down here at the end of the handle, and it gets gradually wider in both directions. So you've got a bit of a, bell shape up here or whatever. And the eye that we're going to use to forge the tomahawk is also shaped the same. So you've got a single direction, a single angle to the eye of the tomahawk, whereas with an axe of any size, it's got it's wider at the bottom and the top of the axe. And so you fit the handle of an axe into the bottom, and it tightens that way, and then you add a wedge at the top and it tightens that way. And so it's literally an hourglass shape in there, and that's how an axe head is kept tight and secured. Whereas the tomahawk head is just slid up from the bottom and wedged up here, and that's how it stays secure. So that's the fundamental difference between an axe and a tomahawk. So in theory, a tomahawk should be more simple, but we'll see how it is to actually build one. Traditionally, well, it's possible that the tomahawk that we know from the American West story and that sort of thing may have come from boarding axes off of ships. They're very, very, very similar in design, especially when they have the spike on the back. And it's possible that the tomahawk had influences from like the Francesca axe, but it was it's very often used in throwing, and it lends itself well to that because the handle tapers down, and so it releases from the hand pretty well. But it can also be used for a variety of different tasks and things, just like a hatchet or small axe.
So I've got this 1045 carbon steel. I don't know if you guys heard that earlier. It's 1.25 inch long, and it's 2-inch round. I think that might be more material than we actually need. It might be a lot more, but we'll see. I don't know. If necessary, we can cut some of it off. D Gun and Forge asked, would you make and sell Tomahawk drift saw? No, that's not something I'm going to get into. I actually bought mine from, what's it called? Holland Anvil. They're casting these out of H13 steel. And there's different places that make them, but this is H13 steel, and that's where I got mine. It's like $50. Could you make one? Absolutely. Am I going to make and sell them? No, that's not something I'm gonna. It's not something I'm gonna get into. It's to do tooling and be able to make it, worth your time as far as making it feasible, cost and time wise in my shop. I'd have to have a little different setup, and that's not something I'm interested in moving towards right now. This will be the first time that I've used this drift, so as of yet I do not know. Yeah, I've seen the ball peen hammers, or ball peen hammer Tomahawks as well. And more, I think you're thinking more specifically of a punch. If you don't have a punch or a way to punch the initial hole, that's a way to do it. But to actually use a traditional Tomahawk handle, you will have to have a drift still, because the ball peen hammer's got a different shape and size of eye. So how's everybody's weekend going so far? Just kicked off for some of y'all. Hasn't started for others. Yep, 1055 steel would be pretty tough. All right, so let's go ahead and forge this down into a billet we can use. Yeah, I'm afraid I have way too much material here. That's my fear right now. we might be, I don't know, we'll see. Decent little chunk for a decent little sized axe, but I do want to put some kind of a hammer or something on the backside. Spike maybe, we'll see. You know, it's always better to have a little more material than not enough. You just can't add material on. At least not with good results. All right, we'll forge on the power hammer a little bit here. Now that we've got the initial shape. This might be a little much for the 50 pound here. I think it's about time to get a bigger hammer and add a bigger hammer to the mix. This is great for knives and stuff. It's great for knives. That's kind of what I have to say about that. But once you start getting into bigger stock, it's well, you'll see. It'll forge this, but it's not going to do so with ease, if you will. Better than nothing, obviously. So anyway, I don't know. I think a bigger hammer needs to happen sometime. That and the fact that having a multiplicity of tools to where you can get, or a redundancy of tools to where you can get multiple die setups is really beneficial for getting stuff made. Did I grease this already? I don't remember. All right. Cool, AJ. That's great. Ricky, yeah, C45, or as we call it over here, 1045. It's great for tomahawks and axes. For most of my axes, I like to use 1060, and that's an oil quenching steel. And this is going to be a water quenching steel. I mean, they're both good, you know, but the 1045 is going to be a little tougher. So since tomahawks are traditionally or typically considered a throwing weapon, I figured I'd use 1045. So it's forging it, it'll forge it, and the thing about the power hammers, the mechanical power hammers, at least the little giants like this, is that they operate at a specific depth, and like this is set for about 3/4 of an inch, so anywhere from like thin stuff up to 3/4 of an inch, it works pretty good at. But this is kind of short stroking it right here, so it's not really getting the full power behind it. And to do that, I would have to adjust the ram up, which you can do, but I don't have it adjust. I'm not going to do that because most of the time I'm forging thinner stuff. So, you know, we really didn't get a lot done on that heat. It's just not only is it not adjusted, but it just doesn't have the weight behind it to really do a ton of work on it. So it was pretty minimal. So we're going to go back to the press, and that'll actually allow us to get some steel moved here. So, hey Evan, how's it going? Yeah, I tried to give everybody a better heads up this time before I went live this afternoon. So hopefully that results in more people, or less people missing the live stream, because I've had several people the last couple of weeks mention that they ended up missing the live stream because they weren't notified or something. You know, YouTube being YouTube didn't notify them. Gotta have my trail mix, you know. It's good stuff. So if I had used 1060, this is my 1060 stock right here. It's already in a little rectangular billet. So theoretically, these can be heated up and we can go straight to the punching process. These are for hatchets, but since the 1045 steel I have is in round stock, it wasn't an option. All right, I'm going to try to get you guys a little closer. Let me know if there's any kind of a lapse or internet or whatever might be weaker if I move it this direction. So let me know if there's any issues. But I want to try to get you guys a little closer. So when you're forging a billet, and this is true for hatchets and stuff and axes, you want it pretty close to a 1, 2, 3 dimension, something like that. I typically go a little thicker than one. Does that make sense? The ratio's like a 1, 2, 3 block, 1 inch by 2 inch by 3 inches, something kind of resembling that. We're going to go for a little bit thicker than 1 inch and maybe a little bit longer than 3 inches, but something similar to those. Something similar to those dimensions, or ratios I should say, because it's not always about the dimensions, it's about the ratio too. So hopefully you guys could see that a little bit better. Joe Berry asked if I sell drifts. I do not sell drifts. I bought the drift that I'm going to be using from Holland Anvil. I don't have any affiliation with them, that's just where I got it. It's a cast H13 steel, which is a hot work steel, so it should hold up really well, and we'll see how it goes. This will be the first time that I've actually used it, so I don't know. Just heating the billet up again here. Somehow I need to get everything in the picture, but I don't know if I can do that and have you guys still really see what's going on. We'll move it around a little bit. From Oklahoma. Our neighbor up there, Oklahoma. Yeah, H13 is, well, I make some drifts out of it for the axes and stuff. And compared to anything like 1025, 1060, regular carbon steel, it is not even in the same category as to how well it holds up for when you're using it for drifts, but it's designed for that. It's designed for hot work. you would expect that, but I know there's some others out there that are good too. I don't have experience with other high temperature steels. All right, we got a nice billet here, and I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. So the next thing we're going to do is put in the punch dies, and we're going to punch an eye in this. And normally on a hatchet, I'd be punching it back here somewhere with maybe 3/4 of an inch from the pole or the back of it. But since I'm going to do some kind of a hammer or spike or something off the back of this Tomahawk, we're going to scoot it up and punch about 1/3 of the way. It's kind of hot. 1/3 of the way from one end. And I'm just going to eyeball that, and we'll just roll with it. So I'm sure it'll be fine. Should be just fine. So I need to pull you guys in a little closer here and let you see what's going to go on with the punching process. This really is a bit of research and development, if you will, because I have not built an actual Tomahawk before. I'm expecting it to go pretty easy because I've built plenty of, well, a number of axes and hatchets, so I can't imagine that it's harder than that, but just never really know, do you? So I actually have 2 punches, and I have one punch that I use for hammers and one that I use for hatchets and axes. I really need to have more than just the 2, but right now that's what I have. So I'm going to use the one that I built for hammers. And these are H13 steel as well. You still have to keep it cooled down. It doesn't just, you're not just going to run it hot and never cool it down and get away with that. That won't work. But it works way better than your simple carbon steels for punches and drifts. Got a stop back here for when I'm doing hatchets and stuff so that I can punch them at the same spot doing a batch, but I don't need that on this. So you want to have that billet plenty hot when you go to punch it. Because the steel, you don't want to burn your steel or anything crazy like that, but the higher end of the forging temperatures, the more plastic the steel is in characteristic, and so you can actually punch the steel with less force, and therefore it's a trade-off, but that allows you to punch it quicker, which means the punch is in the steel for a shorter amount of time, and therefore it's going to pick up less heat. So it might seem counterintuitive, but that will actually keep your punches cooler. So I'm just letting it heat up, getting it up to temp here. I might put some gloves on because I gotta, I don't know. I didn't put gloves on yet. I do need a little, where'd my little tin can go? It's not tin, but you know what I mean. A can go for cooling off the punch. This is my punch lube. I am not super organized today, guys. Kind of spent the day, well, doing handle material prep. And it's going pretty well. All right, here we go. Nice and straight. This is super important. Getting that eye punched nice and straight from the very beginning sets you up for success. If it's not perfectly straight, you can adjust it, but it's not as easy as getting it straight the first time. And so that's nice. Here's our slug. This is what comes out of the second side when you punch it. The punch kind of shears off a little bit of material. And that's right at the leading edge of the punch, and there it is. All right, so far so good. I think what I'm going to do next is we're just going to start drifting it a little bit here, and you can see where we're at right now. We're just, we got some material. We've got some gaps and stuff around there, but it won't take much to start drifting this. And well, anyway, let's just move forward. So the goal here is to shape the Tomahawk head such a way, well, I got a specific design in mind is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Y'all are a quiet bunch today, eh? I actually am going to have to move things back a little bit. I do not think about this very much, apparently. Move back so I can get access to the swage block. Obviously, I need to use that. limited space in this shop. It's time for a new shop. Get some room, elbow room around here. That would be nice. All right, so I'm gonna move you guys over here because we have to get over to where we can use the swage block. And I gotta clear some junk off of it. Well, not junk. Tools. Yeah, I find one of the biggest challenges with axe making and stuff is getting the tooling built and put together. If you're just doing it by hand, then maybe just, one drift is all you really need. But if you're trying to build, more than one in any kind of efficient fashion, then there's going to be more to it. So we were able to use the press to punch that eye, and that was excellent. It's very helpful. Obviously, that can be done by hand. It takes longer, takes more work, but that's how it's been done for a long time, obviously, prior to machinery. And now it's all going to be grunt work here going forward to get this eye drifted out. So we don't have a drift that we can use in the press. That would be and you can get them, but that would be a shorter sections of the Tomahawk sized and shaped eye. But that's okay. All right, let's see how this goes. I think this is going to be really important, as usual, to make sure that the drift is properly indexed. Once I start forging this in here or drifting this in here, it's going to very distinctively, I should probably turn it around to make it a little more even, distinctively start forging that teardrop shape into the billet. Now see, I want to come over here very carefully. Now you guys probably can't see this, but I'm just going to forge Okay, so on the next heat, I'll bring you guys over so you can see what I'm doing here. And this might be slightly premature, but okay. So it's not going to come off super easy. That's okay. All right. So what's interesting, of course, is that normally I would drift from both sides on a axe or a hatchet, which this is not. So I'm going to bring you guys over here so you can see the power hammer, because as I'm drifting the eye, I want to shape the cheeks of the Tomahawk very specifically. Not too dissimilar to like the Tomahawk in the movie The Patriot, something along those lines. I don't remember what that one looks like exactly. If you guys have any questions, throw them up there. Got a couple questions here. Ricky asks, do I need a few drifts to actually forge my first axe? One size drift, an eye punch would be enough. Yeah, so if you're doing it by hand, you're going to need a punch. And typically, a punch has got a handle on it, and you hit the punch with your hammer, and that's how you punch the eye from the very beginning, like we just did on the press here. And the shape of the punch, the hand punch, is going to look real similar to this punch right there that you see. Okay, and but it's going to have a handle, and you can use it by hand, and that's going to get your initial hole to start forging or drifting the eye. And then if you're doing it by hand, then you can just have one drift, and it's going to be longer than a machine drift, because you're doing it by hand. You're going to start at the smaller dimensions. It's going to work its way up, and that allows you to just start hammering on the drift and forging out that eye, and you just forge it all the way up to where you want the dimensions to be. And so, yeah, really with two tools, you should be able to completely forge the eye of an axe by hand. AJ asks, where do you primarily get your steel? These days, I get most of my steel from New Jersey Steel Baron. And in the past, I've also used Admiral Steel, used Jant Supply, and what's the other one that I bought steel from? I don't know, I can't remember now, but pretty much everybody has some steel. New Jersey Steel Baron seems to have the best selection and prices overall. But if you're looking for something specific, you got to go where you can find it. So, for example, my 410 stainless that I use to forge my San Mai billets with the stainless cladding on them. I got that from Jant's Supply, and it comes in a 6-inch by 12-inch plate, 1/4 inch thick, and then I cut it down into sections and make billets out of it, and that was the best option for the 410 stainless because so some other companies I'll use is like Speedy Metals or Online Metals or some of those guys, and they have different things that I'll usually use for like low carbon type stuff or whatever, and I've used them in the past. Well, that's where I get my H13, for example. It's one of those guys. But the 410 stainless from them, for example, is super expensive, and just the dimensions and everything, if you get it in a bar, was way too costly. And so you guys are looking at my feet, sorry. And so being able to get it in those plates for my purposes with the making billets out of it worked really well from Jant's Supply. And so yeah, for the blade steel, mostly New Jersey Steel Baron, and then depending on what you're trying to find, you have to shop around a little bit. All right, guys, I'm going to drift this some more, and then I'm going to come over here to the power hammer, and so you guys can see what I'm trying to do here. So you're not going to be able to see me drifting at this time because I can't get that wide of a view on it. Okay, so I'm making some progress on the drifting, and I'm gonna square up or flatten the cheeks a little bit, and then I'm gonna come in here, try to get this straight, if I can, without it bouncing around on me. Basically, I'm trying to really define the bit off of the eye. Get a transition. So this is, I don't know. This is going to be a very weighty Tomahawk head, I'm afraid. Well, first Tomahawk ever. We're just going to keep rolling with it and probably drastically reduce our material, our billet size next time. But that's okay. Straighten up this eye a little bit here. So this drift is very rough in texture. It's a sand cast piece of steel, and you can, grind and polish it down or whatever. I chose not to. I'm gonna use it like as is and see how that goes. You might think that it would make it more difficult to get it to release from the Tomahawk eye. However, this rough texture actually makes for a reduction in surface contact. So in reality, it should actually make it easier to remove the eye from, maybe not initially, it might kind of be stuck from the rough texture, but it's not going to have that Morse taper type fit where you have so much surface contact. So it actually should help it release easier in theory, but we'll see. Hey Jesus, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. AJ, I don't know, I'm thinking separate location would be nice for a shop. I don't know, thinking about some things. We'll see. AJ, it does actually get pretty cold where we're at. We're just on the very bottom edge of the plains, basically, so 20-degree weather in the winter coming down off the plains. And my shop doesn't have any insulation or anything. The forge is nice, when it's cold, but I'm not forging all the time, so sometimes it can be a little chilly. I think my punch was a tad bit too square, and so I'm trying to get the eye to fit to match the teardrop shape a little better. The way the material moves is it doesn't just take the shape of the drift necessarily. Like it'll still have corners. Still have corners in the eye that aren't matching the drift shape. So kind of have to keep an eye on that. I'll show you what I mean here. See how it's got that teardrop shape already, but you see those corners. Hopefully you can see it. Of the original punch. So honestly, that hammer punch probably wasn't the most ideal, but I think we'll make it work. Tinkerist, how's it going? Yeah, I've never actually had an insulated shop, even up in Idaho. And so I've always just worked in the cold. And, you know, depending on acclimation, you know, you can get by okay. Well, I shouldn't say that. Actually, my last shop was in Idaho, did have some insulation. Well, not on the roof though, so it didn't really matter. The walls had some insulation, but the roof was completely uninsulated, so it was kind of irrelevant. And I didn't really have a heat source. A wood stove would have been perfect for that, but I didn't have that. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm hoping, yeah, I'm glad you're able to tune in. Hoping more people can tune in on this Tomahawk project. It's kind of slow going here because we're running one billet here and heating it up and foraging. But that's kind of the nature of the live stream, you know, kind of interacting too. So yeah, negative 35 in Celsius. I don't know what that is, but it's cold. Well, that'd be close to what? 0 to negative 10 in Fahrenheit, something like that. I don't know. I forgot to cool down the drift. So you can see that starting to oxidize on the finish. It's been heated up and got the tempering colors, as it were. So I'm going to drift this from the bottom side a little bit, just to get the shape established a little better, even though it's not actually going to be tapered on the bottom side, obviously. I just want to get that a little better. Okay. That's all right. It's looking okay. Well, I think here's where I really want to work on defining, and we might actually do a little bit of, well, I don't know. I don't really want to do a bunch of grinding on the outside, but I might end up doing that just because we have so much material on the cheeks. Well, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start working on defining the pole here. I think that's what I need to do next. I don't really know for sure, but that's what we're going to do. Okay. We aren't too far away from where we want to be on the eye. We're about halfway there, I think. So before we get all the way there with that, we need to do the forging of the bit and the hammer or the spike or whatever. Take wrist, I'm using 1045 on this one. AJ, I have not had any noise complaints. I don't really have neighbors actually, because I mean, we have neighbors but they're not close, and I'm not, well, I guess I am right now, but typically I'm not making noise out here in the evening or at night, so people are at work during the day anyway, typically, and so far it's not been an issue. Sam Doll, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. We're forging away on this Tomahawk project, and I'm going to start working on, I guess I'm not really settled on what I want to do. I think I want to do like a hammer type pole on it here. I could do a spike, but that's going to be, I think I want to do like a hammer. I do believe that's what we're going to do. Well, okay. That's... Yeah, straighten that out a bit there, eh? All right, I'm gonna leave it like that for a minute. I don't know, we could do a spike too, that'd be cool. I'm gonna leave it like that for a minute though, and I'm gonna forge on the bit, okay? That's what I'm gonna do. I do believe. Yes, sir. Nope, same anvil. Same anvil. Tomahawk is not custom order. It's not really random though either. It's something I've been wanting to do, but I'm also kind of using it as a research project where I just working on some techniques, you know, and the spear is not finished yet. I have to get a sizable piece of wood for the haft or the handle of the spear. It's got to be about 2 inches square, and I need to go to my specialty wood shop for that. It's in the area. I haven't made it over there yet. Bobby Hobby and Custom Build says, if you want to start a forge, what kind of advice would you give on starter equipment? Well, that kind of depends on your budget, right? Because time is money. And while it's cool to build stuff from scratch, as I've done with various things over the years, if you have the means to purchase some pre-made or ready-made equipment that's quality, going to get you going on it, that can be really helpful. So, what's your budget? Ransom's at work. Thanks, Samdall. Yeah, y'all don't have the sunshine up there like we do down here. I know how that is. All right, let's forge on this bit. Forge on the bit a bit. A wee bit. I think I'm going to start by using this as an open. Sorry, wasn't prepared. There you go. Now I lost most of my heat, but oh well. All right, hold still there. Things are not lined up. That's why it does that. There's some uneven. I'm not holding it even. I can't really see how I'm holding it exactly. That's why it bounces around like that. So I'm just trying to give myself, you know what I mean? Tomahawk shape. I don't have to explain that. You guys know it. You guys can see it. So anyway, start at that direction. I'm going to leave the camera where it's at this time so that I don't have to stop and move it while I got a hot billet. Yeah, I hope your hand heals up there, Joe. You're able to get back to it. Well, $100, Bobby Hobby. For $100, what I would recommend is a pretty simple setup, but you can get steel hot and you can hammer on it for $100 or less. I really need to make a video on this. I was going to do that a long time ago and I never did. But anyway, you can literally, if you have nothing else, you can literally make a hole in the ground, a shallow hole, fill it with charcoal, half bury a pipe, a steel non-galvanized pipe coming into the side, run some kind of a blower, hair dryer, whatever, light that charcoal up, use that blower to heat. You'll get it more than hot enough to forge steel with. And then any kind of block of steel that you can use for an anvil, whether it's a large discarded equipment pin, like a 2-inch round piece of steel, about yay long, you mount that vertically, maybe in the ground, maybe on something else, and use that surface to hammer on. That'll make a decent anvil. You can do things very cheaply to start just to where you're heating up steel and you have the ability to hammer and forge it in a very simple way. But that's one way that you could accomplish that. All right, let's forge this bit. let's even that up, shall we? Okay, well, that's all fine and good. However, I want this straight across the top like a traditional Tomahawk. And doing that, when I forge that, that's going to pull this eye open some more, and that's part of the reason why I did not forge this eye all the way before I started doing this, because then you have an oversized eye, and nobody wants that, because then you don't have the right size for the handle, Tomahawk handle. Yeah, the Tinkerist. You can use a few fire bricks. Yeah, if you've got the ability to buy a couple fire bricks and just set up a simple little box, even better. But yeah, you really don't have to spend any money to speak of to heat steel and hit it with a hammer. But yeah, your cheapest setup is going to be a solid fuel like charcoal, because that's readily available in small quantities. And without having to buy a whole ton of coke or coal or anything like that. And you don't have to have an actual forge, you just have to have a containment system like some fire bricks or a hole in the ground. Literally, I'm not joking. That's going to be your quickest and cheapest way to heat steel. And it does actually work just fine. Okay, we'll see how this works. I need to forge this. I'm going to try to use my... I don't think this is going to work like that. It's too tall already, so... This is not really the right die setup for this. Open dies are very versatile, but they're limited. Okay, I do like that. I like that definition between the eye and the blade. However, the bit, we got a ton of stock on that eye still, so you know, whatever and stuff, but it is what it is. I have a wee bit of a cold shut right there. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a cold shut, it's just it could have been, but it's not. I need to make sure that that's not a cold shut, though. I'm going to have to run this over to the grinder really fast, and just because I kind of had a step there. So okay, well, I don't, I gotta be careful I don't mess up the shape of the bit too much here. So we're gonna probably be doing some hand hammering to adjust that. But I wanna work on the back of it here. I think I will do a spike after all. I'm not gonna use all of the stock that I have there, but I think I will do a spike, and yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Because the material is already narrowed down too much for a effective hammer. Yeah, Samdal has it right. That's another more lined out pretty good there. Ricky, all file guides have to be hardened. Well, I mean, if you're going to run a file up against it, it needs to be at least as hard as the file to kind of do its job. I use carbide insert file guides myself, and those work pretty well. Otherwise, it's kind of, you know, it doesn't really do what you want it to do. Yeah, that's a good idea, Sandal. Get some familiarity with the craft a little bit. What's going on here? My phone that I'm able to view the live stream on is not picking up Wi-Fi or something goofy. So it's like buffering. Hopefully you guys aren't experiencing that. Seems like it's going okay. All right, we're gonna forge this spike. We're gonna forge this spike in here. That's what we're gonna do. Get my other tongs out here. Cool them off. They were sitting too close to the forge. Yeah, so I'm really trying to get some good definition, step down between the eye and the the spike in this on this side. So that's going to be more material than we need, obviously. And I'm not sure about how I did that, to be honest. I'm not sure if I like that or not. I don't know, it's not too bad. So that's what it's looking like. Obviously we got more material. It's not going to be like a long boarding axe spike. It's going to be a more like an armor piercing spike, you know, a lot thicker and heavier, but that's looking okay. So I'm happy with the way that's going so far. I still think we could have started with less material, but I did measure my billet, so I have a good idea of what size billet I will cut. This was 1.25 inches. No, that's just moving the bit. 1.25 inch piece of 2-inch round, and this time I'm going to go with just 1 inch. an inch long. I think that'll give us a nice sized Tomahawk. All right, let's work on this bit a little more. The shape is there, sort of, but we need to lengthen it and define the shape a little better. But it's coming along pretty good, I think. Yeah, this Tomahawk is going to be available. And if you absolutely have to have it, I don't know, somebody suggested bidding, like auctioning or whatever, a project on the live stream, which would be, that's kind of a good idea. I don't know if we'll do that specifically here, but yeah, anyway, it'll be available. Yeah, Sandbell, that's right. Joe, I'm not inlaying a bit. This is 1045 steel, so it'll be plenty adequate as a mono steel tool, and also plenty tough. So here we go. Let's work on this a little bit here. Turn it so you guys can see it a little better. It's probably going to be a combination of the power hammer and the hand hammer from here on out. I like that. That's looking great. The trouble we're going to run into, though, guys, like I said, this is the first one I've ever made. I need to do some more grinding on that because we do have some cold shuts there. That's not good. We have plenty of material, so that's not a problem. I do definitely have to do some grinding. But the problem we're going to run into is that the drift has to come in from the top. And I don't know, we might have a spot on the swage block here that we can keep our bit from getting totally messed up. This is such that I have to take it to the post anvil here and get the angle grinder out. I got to take care of this. Otherwise, we're going to have a real issue. So just bear with me here. Y'all are not going to be able to see what's going on, but it's just a quick grinding job here on with the angle grinder. Momentarily. Thought I got it out on the belt grinder, but it did not. It was not adequate. That was even a little deeper than I expected. That would have been bad if we'd have kept going. Okay. So there we go. We still have more than enough material here. And the cool thing, the thing about this Tomahawk design is that you've got your eye, and then well, this one in particular, I suppose, but you've got an abrupt transition down to the bit. And that's kind of the characteristic of it, at least how we're doing this. right, I'm gonna bring you guys back over to the power hammer because we're gonna work on the bit some more. And like I said, just kind of probably going back and forth between the power hammer and the anvil. Duck Rabbit, how's it going? All right. So normally when I'm doing axes and hatchets, I am running a batch, you know, and I'm doing a specific process or series of processes to multiple billets, multiple pieces at a time. And obviously that's the most efficient way to do it, but it's kind of fun to just run a project from more or less start to finish. Because then you get an idea of what, you know, the whole process is like, what it is you're trying to do, you know. So now we're starting to get down into some dimensions that this hammer really likes, and it's really working well for us. As you can see where we're at, we've got starting to get a nice shape, and we can clean that up on the anvil and really define that. So I'm really liking that. It's looking really good. I think I'm going to work on the spike now and get that a lot closer to finalized shape. It is possible that we'll end up grinding some material off of the finished eye just because it's so thick. I don't know yet though, we'll see. I might try to shape it a little bit more with the hammer. Well, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna drift. I'm gonna work on drifting it a little more here. I can come back and do that eye, or excuse me, the spike after. So I'm gonna, yeah, we're gonna work on getting the eye drifted really close to finished dimensions here. That's the next order of business here. Duck Rabbit, did you get the plague? No. Thanks, Sam Doll. I appreciate that. I'm glad the channel is helpful and inspiring. That's good. That's well, that's what it's here for. So educational, inspiring, etc. I need to flip this around. The eye is not exactly in a hot spot in there. This is looking pretty sweet, if I do say so myself. I'm kind of excited how this is turning out. True to form, I'm very guilty of this. I mean, sorry, you know, but I bought those Tomahawk handles, I don't even know, it could be 2 years ago. And I was planning on building some Tomahawks, and I think I mentioned it in some video or something, and This is literally the first time that I have made one. And part of it too was I was initially going to build my own drift and my own tooling and stuff, and that's fine, but I just don't have a lot of time to do that full progression, so that was kind of stopping me. And I finally just bought a drift because I wanted to build a Tomahawk, and should have done that a long time ago. But anyway, here we are. And that's great. So anyway, hopefully this spot right here on the swage block is going to help keep our bit from getting totally messed up. So far so good, except for the fact that's all right. It's not. It needs to straight. It's not straight on there. That's not good. So sort of good, I guess. Sort of so far so good. I think we'll be okay if I just come back and drift it from the other direction. It'll be all right. Yeah, I still have those doggone corners right there in the eye. My very initial punch. Duck rabbit. No, this is this is 1045 steel. Yeah, we started as a puck, like a hockey puck, kind of a round piece of steel, 2 inches round by 1.25 inches. And I probably could have started with 1 inch instead of 1.25 inches, but here we are. Samuel says, can you keep me in on your transition from power hammer to hand hammer? You have very clean lines already. What I am guessing is that you're removing big steel with hammer and then refining the grooves by hand. Yeah. What am I trying to say? I do not know. Depends on which part of what you're talking about, because there's part of it here that I'm basically only forging, and I'll show you here. So right here, this where it transitions from the eye to the bit, this part I'm just using the power hammer because it's got the clean corners. What I'm doing with the hand hammer is I'm cleaning up the profile here and getting my bit dropped in relation to the axis of the eye. I'm forging this by hand, so it's two different areas that I'm making use of the shoulders or the corners of the power hammer die to get that very abrupt, clean transition. And it seems to be working pretty well. Yeah, I should probably build some kind of a jig, a bit of tooling like you're talking about, Duck Rabbit. Well, I really should. And of course it's going to be different sizes and stuff for different sizes of axes and tomahawks and everything. The nice thing about the Tomahawk here is that it doesn't have, it does not have, what am I trying to say? Lugs on the cheek, so it there we go, that's straighter. You don't have to worry about smashing those down because the eye is just kind of flat across the bottom. So that's nice. It's really a bit too cool to be forging it now, so wasting my time, but that looks, just forge that in a little bit maybe. Well, it should have plenty of weight to it. All right, well, yeah, I'm gonna work on the spike next because we're pretty close on the eye now, about 2/3 of the way. So I'll bring you guys back over to the power hammer, and we'll forge this spike. It started as a glass of water. That's hilarious. Gary, how's it going? Gary, I don't know what anvil this is. It's as far as I'm aware, it's an older American make, but I don't know what it is because it's so beat up, and the maker's marks, if there was much, are not really visible. So I want to say that I ascertained that it was something like I don't know, one of the different ones. Ajax or Hay Button or whatever. There's a bunch of different ones. But anyway, it's older because it's forged. It's a forged body. But that's not really enough to identify it, obviously. Well, I do think that a little bit of grinding on this spike is going to be helpful. Ah, come on now. I don't know, we could go boarding axe style. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Should we curve this and turn it into a boarding axe style tomahawk, or shorten it and make it just more like an armor piercing type of weapon? What do you think? What do y'all think? All right, see you, Samdal. Thanks for tuning in. We have some votes for, is that a couple votes for a boarding axe style long spike? Y'all have some ships to board. Seems to be a couple folks that agree with that idea. We may have to do that. It's what you use when you've been conscripted into Her Majesty's Navy. Alright, let's fix this bit a bit. Going to move that material down. That is looking like a proper Tomahawk-y thing. Although most Tomahawks were a bit smaller, I think, historically, but that's all right. So how is this fitting with our how's this fitting with our drift, like where our axis needs to be in line? Does that make sense? This is important. So our handle, see, it's not where it needs to be, see? It's kind of cockeyed. So we got to fix that. Yeah, the spike I was going to do is a shorter, still curved, right? I was asking whether we should leave it this length, approximately, and curve it. It's going to be curved either way. I'm just saying that the long spike looks more like a boarding axe. So right now the thickest portion of the the thickest stock on this axe is really the eye. So now that's what's taking longer to heat up. Well, my bit is getting quite hot, as well as the spike. That's kind of not what I want. I mean, the bit is up to forging temperature, and the eye is still not there yet, so it's not the greatest. Okay, we've got to get this fixed. It's kind of, my anvil is in the way. Yeah, that's off. Okay, so I'm trying to knock that over with not a lot of success. Yeah, getting there, I guess. Okay, come on now, we gotta get this fixed. Well, that's not really cooperating very much. That's yeah. This is not what needs to happen here. So I'm thinking maybe I did need to drift from both sides a little bit more as we worked our way up. I'm thinking that might have been a good idea. So we have to correct it very expediently because we're very close to the end of the drifting process, and once we're at that drift size, you're done. Like, you don't have anywhere to go after that. So I am going to put the drift in backwards and try to move that a little bit and see if that helps. I think that helped. it just goes right back to that. This could be a real issue with trying to use the swage block for this too. Well, dang, how are we going to fix this? I think what's happening is when I'm hammering that in, that the toe of the blade of the bit is hitting right here and knocking it off the angle that it needs to be. So I think that's probably going to be our issue right there. All right, Bobby Hobby, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Tinkerist. We'll see you later. We are very close to being done with the forging process on this. Now we're just kind of, unfortunately, trying to figure out how to get it to work with the drift so that it's got the correct '90-degree angle on the handle, which is obviously kind of important. So over here, come over to the anvil. Yeah, I think that's working. Okay. Yeah, all right, we've got it. We've got it. Be okay. Forge the bit over a bit. Forge the bit a bit. Yeah, I was hoping to completely finish this on stream. But at least get the forging part done. right, let's get this spike. You guys can see the anvil. I'm not sure if you can or not. So I'm going to have the spike end right about here, and that should match the lengths pretty well. So what I was able to do is use the edge of the anvil with the drift, and that kind of corrected the issue we were having. Homemade power hammer, that'd be good. Anything that helps with the heavier forging and stuff. Rudy, how's it going? We are forging a Tomahawk. Nearly done, nearly there. So I kind of lost most of that edge right there, but just resting that right up on the anvil, that allows me to keep that angle where it needs to be. Kind of lost the curvature on the spike here. Plenty long, much too long. So I do think I am going to end up just grinding off some material on the outside of the eye. And that'll allow me to give that real faceted look that I kind of wanted. I don't think I said that earlier, but it's kind of what I want to do on it. So there's plenty of opportunity for that with this setup. So I'm just trying to get the bit lined up with the eye. So everything's nice and straight. And we're not quite there. For whatever reason, it's kind of wandering off. To one side. Course is not what we want. Looks pretty centered though from that angle. There we go. I'm not going to stamp it right now because I want to shape the eye so that it's a really faceted cheeks on it and stuff. And I'll put a touch mark on it after that. Well, I'm going to use that that handle to see where we're at as far as how this is going to fit, and I might drift it a little more. I want to see where this is going to sit on the handle. Yeah, so I think we need to drift it a little bit more. And that angle's okay, but it's not quite where it needs to be. So we're going to heat this back up and we're going to drift it a little bit more. Getting close here. Getting close. I'm already kind of deforming the top of my drift here. I was trying to hit it on the front corner there to adjust the angle of the eye, and all that really did was mess up the drift a little bit. But there's a spot where it stops getting wider and it tapers down a little bit. That's the widest spot on the drift, and I think we need to go right up to that spot, and that's going to give us the proper fit on our handle. The handle keeps getting wider, but and so drifting right up to the widest spot on the drift will give us what we need, I think. As far as where the eye is going to come to rest on the handle. And we're very nearly there. Now we're forging up a nice sort of little transition on this spot, which isn't exactly what I was trying to do, but that is what's kind of happening. Well, that's kind of it. I think it's right there. So we could maybe go just a little bit more. That's really close. I'd just go a hair more. Just drift it a little bit more, and then check for straightness the final time, and we should be there. Anybody got any questions about this project or any other smithing projects? Yeah, on the next iteration, we're going to want to start with a a smaller billet, but a narrower billet, because unlike when forging axes, you really are not forging the cheeks down much. Like, you're not doing that at all. You're just widening the eye, and you know, on the axes, you're forging the cheeks a lot thinner, and you're making the cheek and the lug much taller top to bottom in that process. But you're making those cheeks so much thinner, and in this case, there's really no process where the cheeks are thinned at all. And so unless you want to finish them after the fact, which is what I'm going to end up doing here, you really want to start with less stock on either side of the eye. It's a lot it should be a lot closer to the finished thickness that you want on the eye. So that was the learning process that I didn't think about or understand prior to this project. So that's good. Okay, that's not going to work here. Yeah, I've got that hook where I want it, and that's getting in the way of actually drifting it anymore. So that isn't going to work. Now I have a divot in my Tomahawk blade. Why'd I do that? All right, well, that looks pretty straight. Trying to get it down pretty straight. Well, I'm pretty happy with it for a first Tomahawk. I'm gonna have to come back after the fact, obviously, and clean things up and take some extra material off and stuff like we've talked about, but definitely a learning experience. And it'll definitely be a sturdy tool for somebody, so we'll have to get her finished up in the near future. But go ahead and get it out to the drift here. Bring you guys over here. Shut the forge off. And let's take a look at this thing real fast here. There it is. We have more than enough material on the hook, and it's going to be a short armor piercing style hook. And we have more than enough material on the eye, which we're gonna clean up, and I'm gonna shape it so it's got facets and stuff, like some of those. You guys have probably seen the look. Of course, we have to take some material off the front of the bit here a little bit and get that a little more Tomahawky, but overall looking pretty good, and I'm excited to finish it. I got that divot right there. Doggone it. Trying to knock things back over on the swage block. Doesn't work very well sometimes. But that's what the eye looks like. And everything's pretty straight. Solid one-piece forged Tomahawk. There it is. All right. Well, any last questions, comments, anything like that? Appreciate you all coming along on this here. Rudy, this anvil came from my granddad. I don't know where he got it. He was wheeling and dealing stuff all the time, so he picked it up somewhere some time ago. It's not like not generational exactly, but that's where it came from. What size billet works best for that style of tomahawk would you guesstimate would be best? Well, again, the size of billet that I started with on this one was 2-inch round stock, 1.25 inch long, and if I had to do it again, I would go with about 1 inch long, and I think that would be enough material because we ended up with some really thick stock around the eye, and obviously more than enough for the hook, so it didn't need to be that much steel. I'm looking at the sorry, straightening here a little bit. And what that translates to in like a rectangular billet, I don't really know, to be honest. What we have over here is some billets for my trail hatchet, and they are 1 inch thick, 3 inches long, or 3 inches tall, and then I don't know how long these are. Hold on. I would start with this size of billet for this tomahawk. I think it would be pretty appropriate. This is 1 5/8 long, 1 by 3 by 1 5/8. That would be, I think, plenty of material. Plenty of material for a tomahawk this size. So there you have it, guys. Thanks, Rudy. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm gonna sign off here and hope you all have a great weekend. And thanks for coming along. We'll get this thing finished up, and it's going to be available probably next week. Well, yeah, it's a weekend, so sometime next week should be up and available, and you'll get to see. I'll put some pictures up on, probably do a short on it, showing the finished one, and then on Instagram and stuff too. So you'll get to see the finished product. This should be cool. So, all right, appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next video.